is right now testing the bull market support band. This is going to be an interesting video. Stick around, watch the whole thing, because we got some things to talk about. So right off the bat, I'm going to start with Bitcoin, and I want you to take a look at what the progress has been for Bitcoin. If I can find the thing, there it is. So looking at the 3-day chart, well, let's start with the weekly. To me, it's still in limbo here. We had a 9 sell right here, right? It perfectly called that top. We came all the way down. We back tested the bull market support band. We went sideways for a little bit, and now we're starting to go up. Now you could see, this is how interesting the TD sequential is, or the 9. It prints these red dots here, and you can see this candle came right up to the red dot, rejected. Came right up to the red dot, actually a little bit lower than the red dot, but still it's finding resistance in here. So really not much to think about here. We could totally come back and retest it, right, and kind of go sideways here before going up. That's sort of been the main idea. Basically being a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways, breakout. That's usually how things go. If they don't do that, then you have some sort of flagging out up here that we'll look at on the smaller time frame, or you have an A, B, C, you come all the way down here, and then you go, which would really be W, X, Y, X, Z, but we can talk about that as well on the smaller time frame. So that's kind of what we're looking at. So we flag out, go, we get a reaccumulation, go, or do we have a C leg and then go? You can see the difference. They're all going in the correct direction. The difference is how they get there and the time it takes to get there. So we'll talk about it. So let's zoom in and look at the 4-hour chart. And remember what we were talking about the last video, that fractal. I think that fractal is really, really interesting. So either this is very, very bearish, or this is setting up to be some bullish breakout. I mean, you can see we have a 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Maybe we're getting ready to go down. Or what I really like now is, let's talk about our triangle, right? We had the A, we have a B, we came down for A, B, C, we just went up for D, and now it looks like we're finishing up E here. So this thing could be getting ready. So I guarantee you this coming week, right? It's Sunday, which means we have the weekly close to talk about, right? The candle is going to close. So next week should be very interesting, because if this triangle, it's either going to be validated or invalidated. So we'll know next week. But right now it's actually looking fairly decent for being a triangle. A closer look here, we have, right, a triangle, you need 3 waves. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? This is a kind of awkward one because you had this little wave in the middle, but this whole thing was 1, 2, and 3, and then we have 1, 2, 3. You can see how the waves are contracting. They're getting smaller. So we need a little 1, 2, 3 here, and then the idea would be to go. So this would be a triangle, a real triangle, right? A contracting triangle. And triangles usually appear in 4th waves. So what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the triangle is in the right spot. It has the correct waves. It is contracting, right? So now let's look at the RSI. And you can see the RSI has the looks of it as well. So it's looking probable, right? Nothing is ever for sure. It's looking probable that it could be a triangle. So I will say this, probably even today or tomorrow we might find out if it's legit or not. So, I mean, one thing is holding this trend line here. So what I would, if this is a triangle, what I would want to see is the price hold support, come back up a little bit, then come back down, finish that third wave, and then continue moving higher. So yeah, we're at a very interesting point here. This is make it or break it, right? So let's see. Let me take this off. And the important thing is, right, when you look left a little bit here, we're holding above this zone. That is important to understand, right? So all of this resistance in here, we broke out. We're testing it as support, right? We're basically consolidating on top of this breakout level. So let's see if we can continue to back test and continue to hold and finish up this triangle and continue higher. So that would be idea number one, right? So the other idea is to just bring this down a little bit here. So instead of these 2 points holding, we just knock it down one. So now we have these 2 points here and even these 2 points here. So we have much more support down here. So we could be heading down to this area, in which case the triangle would be no longer affected, right, or no longer valid, but we would also have something else that could potentially work out, right, which is a 1 2 1 2, which would be incredibly bullish if that plays out, because that would mean that this is not the third wave. And I don't like it anyways as a third wave, because it's not really impulsive enough to for me to like it, right? Third waves, you want them to be pretty strong. So it could totally be a 1 2 1 2, right? And then in which case, what would this be? Well, to me, it would be probably an A, a B, and now we have a 1 2 1 2, so 3 4 5 4 5, something like that, where basically you have an A, B, C, and then you hopefully hold support here and then continue higher, right? So if we put the Fibonacci retracement up, we don't want to break below that 702. And look at that. So that comes in between the 50 and the 618. Essentially the golden ratio, right? That's the 50 and the 618 is probably the most important, because of the the retracement levels being hit. So that's usually where price likes to gravitate towards after a notable move. And we did have one, right? We did have this move up, so if it's coming back down wouldn't be surprising at all. And then it would also back test wave 1, also hit the 618, the 50, and then it have that 1 2 1 2 shape, which could be very, 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 very bullish. So those are essentially the two ideas that I have right now. If we start breaking those, we can talk about other ideas. So it's really, I would say, 3 ideas. So that was 1 and 2. So the other idea is essentially the same. It's just, saying it a little different, which is basically a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation. We're basically going sideways in here before we break out. So, that's our rise, that's our crash, that's our retrace. We're going into reaccumulation in here, right? If we break that, if we start going down, right, start breaking below 60K, then we can start to flip around and say, okay, that's not what's happening. What's happening here is, I don't think a lot of people are talking about this count. We have 3, so W. Remember, 3 is W, 3 is X, 3 is Y. A could be 3 or 5. B is always 3. And C is always 5. So A could be either 3 or 5. B is always 3. And C is always 5. And W is always 3. X is 3, right? And Y. So there you go. We have a WXY, and it can be finished. Or, look at this. We have another 3. So if it's a 3, we can label it an X, because X is always the counter trend of the correction, just like wave Bs are the counter correction. So we'll label that X, and then we could get another 3-wave move down, right? And that could be Z. I mean, Z doesn't have to do that. Z can be right there, right? It could be. So, I mean, it's going to be definitely interesting one way or another, because if this Z leg does play out, it would be very interesting to see if the bull market support band can then hold it, right? Because that would be one of the main factors. And the big thing about coming back down, let me fix this here. Coming back down to back test this 53 to 47K area is we would lose the bull market support band, right? So that's never happened ever before in a Bitcoin bull market, right? So if we go back, here's the last bull market right here. You can see the bull market support band continued to hold all the way, and we didn't even really test it a lot. That's why it was pretty short. The only time we broke it was back here. So you could count that this whole thing, I mean, theoretically it is, from here all the way to here was the bull run. But people didn't count it like that. They counted it from here to here. So that's why they thought, oh, it's barely getting started. We should be continuing to go. No, but the bull run had been going way before that. This was just a big wave one, right? And when we fell below the bull market support band, it took, let's see, how long did it take here? About right there to get it back there. It took about 220 days or so, right, to get back above the bull market support band. So that's why we don't want to lose it, because if we lose it, obviously history says, you know, we can get back above, but it might take some time. And the reason why this one went, you know, below the bull market support band is, number one, we didn't have a base here, right? I mean, if you look how small that base is compared to how big this base was, it's definitely bigger. And then plus we had another base here, right? So we're breaking out, consolidating, right? Versus this one, we had a little base and we shot straight up. So we quickly lost momentum. And yeah, we had to deal with all of this. So is it possible that we have to deal with something like that coming up? Yeah, it's possible, but I don't think it would take that long, considering we've already spent some time reaccumulating, right? So if you go back even further, you know, we've wicked below the bull market support band, but nothing other than that. Here's where the bull market started. You can see we're holding, testing. We sort of wicked through it. We tested it. We tested it. We tested it. We tested it. Right? I mean, this is perfect, like textbook, right here. And then even when we're in a bear market, now it's not called that anymore. It's called a bear market resistance band, as opposed to the bull market support band. So you can see how perfectly it was resisting in here before it fell. So, you know, here we are again. Right? Now, I will say this. We haven't tested it, right? We only just tested it that one time. So we got the test out of the way. So, you know, that's the good part. So there's a little bit of conflicting sort of ideas here, because on one hand, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have this base here. Okay? And then on the other hand, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The question is, do we get another base here, right? So I would imagine that this wave, if this triangle fails, then we would get a bigger base. And I think a bigger base is actually a good thing, not a bad thing, right? Because it basically establishes, you know, think about when you know, the builders building a skyscraper or even a house. You want a solid concrete, you know, or you know, a foundation, right? So you want the foundation to be strong. So if this is essentially our launch pad, you want a little bit more of a base, I guess you could say, right? So that's why I'm like, well, if we do have an ABC or WXYXZ and we come down here, then we would lose the bull market support band and we would really lose the base. So that's why I don't like it. But if we did have to come back down, right, and then go sideways and then break out, it's kind of like that, how we went down, right? We came back up and then we came back down and then we went sideways, right? So, you know, rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways. Rise, crash, reaccumulation, or retrace. Now we're going down into reaccumulation, sideways. So that's why I like that. So I think a lot of people are expecting if we go down, we're going to go down to 50K. We're going to break it. But to me, I'm like, well, if we go down, we have a good chance at just essentially going sideways. Basically going into reaccumulation. So we'll see. You know, we're having a bunch of these indecision candles. So what I like about these indecision candles is they're not coming from a green candle. You see what I mean? So if these doji candles, right, they signal reversal. See, here's a doji here, and then we came down. But it was going, you know, the doji came from an up wave. We were going up, and then this red candle brought us down, and now we have the doji. So instead of the dojis being up here, they're down here, which means that's actually good, right? We would rather have them down here, right? Rejecting the downside as opposed to up here rejecting the upside. So that's one way, you know, you can look at it positively. So just real quick, I'm going to move on to the other coins here. You know, just waiting to see how this triangle holds up. And now I'm going to talk about the fractal, right? So let's talk about that. So essentially people pull fractals, you know, wherever they can get them. But a lot of times people don't think to take fractals that are going down. So you see this wave here, this giant bear market, that's actually incredibly bullish if you flip it upside down, right? So I'm going to take a bars pattern and I'm going to put it right there. And then I'm going to flip it upside down. Now, this fractal can be very bullish or it could be very bearish. And I'm going to explain two reasons why. Now, when you stretch it out, it does have that bearish look. It does look pretty decent, though, especially down in here. This move back up. But it definitely has its flaws. And I'm going to explain that when we look at it closer. But basically, that's sort of the bearish idea where we come back down. So we had this boom, boom, and then we come back down and then we continue higher. So that's one way to look at it. The other way, I actually like it better. So basically we're comparing this wave right here to what we're doing here, but on the opposite front. Okay, so here we go. So let me just move it right about there. So now you can see that, you know, actually I didn't, you know, resize it. I actually had to make it smaller as opposed to bigger. But essentially, when you look at this, it actually looks pretty dang good. Now I have to actually make it a little bit smaller. You can crunch it in a little bit, but essentially, you know, here's the fractal right there. So when I turn the lights on right here, we can see, you know, basically just pause the video and take a look at it for yourself. I mean, it looks pretty spot on, right? We started, you know, working our way up here. We met the top here. We came back down, right? And then we came, right, the fractal came up. We had this top. So did the price. Came back down, had a double top, right? So that's interesting. I mean, I think this green area here is, to me, one of the most interesting spots, because, you know, usually the wave will come back up and take out that high for a B wave. But it actually made a very similar top, how we were just sort of grinding our way down, not really impulsing, had this double top, right? And then we had 1, 2, 3, and broke this bottom. Same thing here. We had 1, 2, 3, and broke this bottom. And then we came down, right? We made a bottom right here in the purple, back tested the bull market support band. The fractal popped up, and then it started to flag out here, right? It started to flag out there, and then, you know, the same thing with the price. We flagged out, and even this little, you know, this wave joint, right? It's sort of how a wave will joint in another wave. This little joint here also looked pretty spot on. So, and now we're sort of in this yellow area trying to see what's going to happen. So this yellow area you can see was sort of an accumulation cylinder. But this one is more like a contracting triangle, what we're in now. So you can see this big wick down in here, right? So I'm not sure if we're going to get that, or even if it's going to continue playing out. Remember, none of this is financial advice. Nothing I say is. This is just all my speculation, interpretation of how I see the waves. And, you know, there's a lot of things that could happen, but all the tools and everything we see here, it's sort of narrowing it down. And, you know, we're basically at a big inflection point. Basically a crossroads, because when you have the all-time high and then the swing low, right, and you're right in the middle of those retracement levels, it's very tricky to know. So you kind of have to play it day by day. But yeah, it would seem that the bulls do have an edge over the bears, simply by the fractal and things like that. However, when it comes to time, I would imagine that it needs a little bit more time, and we could actually go into a, you know, a reaccumulation level, which would actually be perfect. The one thing we don't want to do is have an A, B, C, and come all the way back down to 50K. Obviously, like I said, you lose the base, you lose the bull market support band. I mean, but you would have a pretty substantial rally after that, I would imagine. So that's kind of the fractal there. So, you know, we'll see if this plays out. I mean, we're gonna know pretty soon, because this thing is, you know, coiling up here. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. If we start breaking down, then we can look at the fractal from a more expanded view. But yeah, that's about it. So here's total 3 of the altcoins. You know, Bitcoin has that contracting triangle. It actually looks pretty decent, but total 3 doesn't have that look to it. So it actually kind of looks a little bearish, to be honest. It does look more bearish. We did, right, just to recap here, we have a completed correction, right, an A, a B, and a C, right? And this took out the top. It was an expanded flat. We came down, we back tested the bull market support band, we back tested it again, we came up, we flagged out, and we broke out, right? We broke out of that flag, and when you look closely, you can see, you know, we're starting to back test that flag here. So, you know, this is the area where it needs to hold. So this is you know, where a lot of people get scared. This is where a lot of people, you know, basically you're shaking out the weak hands. Who's gonna prevail here? You know, it'll make you believe that we're going down, 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 but it's actually just back testing and consolidating. Now, if we do break below this level, this yellow box here, then what I would look for is, let's see where the retracement comes in. I mean, we're still high. I mean, we haven't even had a 50% retracement of this wave yet. So from this wave here, right, this 3-wave move, 1, 2, 3. So I would actually say we are very bullish as long as we stay above here. So that would be the area that I would look for if we did break this yellow area. So that would come in around 631 billion to 645 billion, and right now we're at 669 billion. So but yeah, and then taking this off, turn it down, we can see potentially here, what would that be then if we did come down? Well, it would appear to be an A, a B, and we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe we get 5, so an A, B, C. We get down here, and then look what we also have. We also have the bull market support band down in here too. So if you look at it from a Wyckoff perspective, you could say that this might be the spring here, or something like that, right? Where you have this here, this first move up, this move back down, move back up, you go into the spring, you curl around, you play around, and then you break out. That's kind of how Wyckoff usually goes. So you know, the fact that we broke out is good, but if we do come back in, it's going to get a lot of people bearish, because they're going to say, well, wait a minute, we broke this and now we came back underneath, but we're really just having a retracement. So, you know, that's one thing you can look at. Another thing is the other fractal, and this fractal is really, really spot on. But before I show that, you also have this little channel here, right? It's not perfect, by no means, and I would actually say, let's see, more like an ascending triangle, but I don't like it because we already broke out. It doesn't look good. You can see how we broke out of it. So we could be coming back down to the belly of that triangle down in here, because you can see here we didn't test it. So we might need to come down, have a nice 3-wave shape, and test it and hold right around here, right around that 618, and you can see there's some support right there, 647 billion to about 635 billion. So if Bitcoin loses that triangle, or it becomes invalidated, then that's what I would think, right? So we definitely have wiggle room. There's no reason to panic, right? I mean, we're still very, very bullish. It's going to feel, the market makers are going to make it feel like it's bearish, right? And the way they do that is not by impulsing it, but by slowly grinding it down. And it's just going down and down. And sometimes they'll push it hard, impulse. And that's, oh man, I got to get out, right? And then it'll kind of retrace, get people back in, and then kind of grind down slower again. So it's basically, you know, like a washing machine, people distributing, people accumulating, So it's got to work itself out. But yeah, when you zoom out, I mean, it's still very bullish. So that would be that. And then here we have our fractal. Let me show you that. So you could say, okay, this was the last bull run, right? So you could say that this first wave up is similar to this first wave up. And this correction we're in now is similar to the correction we're in as well. So let's see if, we can match that up. So here, right, you can see that we did develop a base. It was just a pretty wild base, right? That's why it had to come it was a very wide range here. It had to come all the way back up, all the way back down. And this range was very tight in here, which is actually good. That's what you want. So coming all the way back down, that's why I just can't see us doing that, because we already developed the base itself. Like you can see here, we came down, there's no base here, so we shot up and then we shot back down. But here we have a big base, so when you break out of that, it's very unlikely you break back below it, because then all of that accumulation would be for nothing. So here's the price area. So look at this right here. So we came up, we had an ABC, right? And then we're just going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's driving people crazy. It makes them feel bearish one day, then bullish the next day, then bearish, then bullish, and it makes people uncertain. It ruins the confidence, right? Because people are used to, the price just, ripping. So now that it's, basically like a washing machine, they don't feel as confident. They feel like, hey, a crash could happen, and what should I do? Should I buy more? Should I get out? Right? So what I would say is follow the fractal, right? So the fractal is actually looking very interesting. So when I put it in, look at that. It fits like a glove, pretty much. I mean, it's pretty spot on. So you can see, we get my arrow here, you can see, right, all of this is perfect. All in here, the test here, even this wave, how it got condensed right here. And even as soon as the fractal popped up, that's when the price did as well. So now the fractal, it kind of deviated a little bit here. You can see the fractal actually came back down to test the low, but the price has not done that. It's actually more bullish than the fractal because it hasn't done that yet. Maybe it's a delayed reaction, but you can see, let me move this up here. Either, let's see, either we're here, right? We're flagging out in here, and that's what I would think, right? And that's what my belief would be. You can see we're just very erratic in here. Come back down, and then slowly make your way out, right? And we can even back test the bull market support band again. So that would sort of be what I would look for. Now you could say that instead of here, we're over here, right? So let me put this down. You see how the wave went down? Maybe we're just not finished with that. So bringing it back up. So what we would look for here is this to kind of finish out down in here. Then we get a nice pop to the upside. And then we sort of flag out and then break it. We'll sideways, then go. So that would be idea number 2. So those are my 2 main primary ideas, right? So which one do I think? I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards the first one, that we're right here, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays. Now, if we start to lose the bull market support band and we start taking out these lows in here, then yeah, that we can say, okay, now, we can rule out what it's not, because TA is not figuring out what it is necessarily. It's figuring out what you can rule out, right? It's just like, You ever watch those investigative discovery shows where they're basically, you got to rule out your suspects, right? So instead of trying to figure out who did it, you got to rule out who didn't do it. So then you can narrow down who did do it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how we're playing this. But yeah, I really like the fractal here. I mean, it fits nicely. So we'll see how that goes. But if I had to guess, I would think, because of how slow it's moving, you know, this kind of moved fast, but this was moving more slow right in here. So I'm hoping that it's something like this. We break out, we go sideways, and we continue higher. So take everything off, and there you go. That's kind of how it would look. And instead of a rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, what you have is a rise, crash, and then this whole thing is accumulation. So you don't need reaccumulation because you've had plenty of time to accumulate, right? Reaccumulation comes in because there wasn't a lot of time to accumulate, but this was giving you ample enough time. So you break out, get into the retracement level, flag out a little bit, and then break the high. So that would be my main idea, and that would be how I would play the ALTS. So that means we probably have a little more downside to go. Maybe we're finished now. It's tough to say, but remember the 618 and the 50% golden ratio. Actually, let me see where that came in at here. So let me do this. I'll put the box right there, and then I'll get rid of that, and then I'll bring the fractal back up, and you can kind of see, yeah, it's looking pretty decent here to come back down into that golden ratio sort of area here. So yeah, we're sort of in that last sort of downtrend, and I would, you know what, now that I look at it, it does look like a spring here, because you can see, I don't have an example of my Wyckoff pattern. So here's one example of Wyckoff. You can see this LPS, right, doesn't break the low. And then here's the other type of Wyckoff, where you actually have more of a spring pattern. So for this instance, I think I'll use this one here, and we'll put it kind of side by side. I mean, it's not perfect at all, but, you know, actually, you know what? It is actually pretty good. So let me show you. So you can see here, we have this move up, right? We have this move up. Then we come back down. We come back down, right? Then we make our way back up, right? Make our way back up. And then you sort of swoop in here. And that's kind of what you want to see. You want to swoop in here. You do something like this, and then you break out. So, you know, we didn't break. Some of the lines, you know, don't make too much sense, because this one here, it doesn't break the high, but this one did break the high. And then the secondary test in phase B oftentimes break the low, but this one didn't break the low. So those are the two sort of deviations. But, you know, when you add the fractal to it, it gives it a little more confidence there. So yeah, there we go. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how this area gets worked out. Okay, so we have the weekly candle close. It's gonna close in less than 4 hours, and it doesn't look that nice, but it actually is pretty decent. So, you know, it is gonna close red, but here's the thing. We came up, we came back down. Look at these candles. Look how tight they are. Green, red, green, red, green, right? They're so tight, right? And they're balancing off the bull market support band. So then what happened was, not this week, but the week before, we had a breakout. Look at this big candle right here. We broke out, and that got everybody very bullish. Then this week got everybody bearish again. But remember, like I always said, every candle has a specific job to do. So These candles in here, their job was to accumulate. This candle was to break out. This candle was actually the most important candle. Why? Because this candle confirmed what this candle did. This candle broke out. This candle came back down to back test the breakout level. So basically this candle coming down to confirm the breakout level. So we'll see if it holds. And now it has to continue to hold, and it looks like it will. So then the following week, right, the following week, which is coming up tomorrow, right, or actually later this evening, the candle's going to start. We'll see how it reacts to what, you know, to how it back tested. So is it going to fail? Is it going to keep going down? I don't think so. I think it's going to hold in here. Now the thing is, you see these wicks? I think we can have a good chance at wicking down to that golden ratio, the 618 that we talked about. So right about there, right? So right in there. I think we can wick down in here. But as far as anything else, I think we're holding pretty strong. So if I put a line on all of these closes here, right about there, yeah, you can see those two black lines. This candle is perfectly back testing it, and it actually wicked off, which is very good. So the weekly chart actually looks pretty decent. So, you know, what could we expect from next week? Well, either another consolidation candle, or we can actually start to get some more momentum back up, right? Because we had the base, we had the breakout, we had the back test. Now let's keep going, right? It might take a little longer than that, but looks like we're in the right, you know, direction here. So the monthly candle ended as well. So we're in a new month, and it ended green, sort of in limbo here. So we basically had this bearish engulfing candle, and this green candle sort of retraced 50% of the breakdown. So when you look at it like that, you know, the monthly candle does, you know, it doesn't look as good because of how many candles you have here. And we're on a 9 too. So we're on a, I mean, that would probably be the biggest red flag for me, is being on a 9 on the monthly, right? So usually the last time we got a monthly 9 was back over here, and that topped the end of the bull market. But if you go back in time, we also had a 9 here. So it actually took 2 9s to end the bull market, right? It took 2 9s to end the bull market. So this might just be 9 number 1, right? So we still need another 9. It's not a perfected 9. You can see the 6 candle actually was the topping out, right? So it's not perfect, and it already had plenty of time to consolidate, right? I mean, because you can see 1, 2, 3, and now the 4th month, we've basically been going sideways here, which is good, right? That's what you want to do. You want to build some support in here. So yeah, there's the total 3. And when you look at Bitcoin, we're also on a 9 on the monthly, right? So when you go back in time, you know, it actually had 3 9s. We had 1, 2, 3 before it actually ended. And the time before that, we had 1, sort of 1.5, I guess. And this is our first 9. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays. And, you know, just to reiterate here, my whole thing about what Bitcoin is doing is this is 1, 2, 3, right? So that's 3 waves, and then we have an A, B, C for wave 4, and now we're going up for wave 5. So the whole thing is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Or not that high. It's not going to go that high, but I probably, you know, between 84 and 115 would be my guess of where it tops out at. So, you know, Do we have to come down first before we go up? We could, right? It's totally possible. But the overall macro direction is up. So, you know, when you look at the monthly, maybe we have another month of consolidation. It wouldn't be such a bad thing, right? And then another thing as well, right? We're going into the summer months. So usually summer is very slow and boring. So if we're going to break out, we should do it soon, right? So two things that I can see happening here is, number one, this was a 5-wave move and now we're in wave 4. Or we still have another hit to the high and then we basically, you know, create this base. So, right, so basically just take the base and put it up here. And then remove that one. So if we have another hit to the high, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then do something more equivalent to this before finishing out the wave. But again, I don't think that's the case. I think this is a wave 4. So yeah, we got one more wave to go, and in that wave we'll have 5 waves, so I think it should be pretty good. So zooming back in here, if I go to the very small time frame, you know, it could be working out that wave E. Remember this triangle here, A, B, C, or A, B, C. This thing is D, and now we're getting E. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Dollar. DXY is actually consolidating bullishly on the bull market support band. That's not what we really want to see. It could be a 1, 2, 1, 2. I don't know. But it could be some type of bull or bear flag here. It kind of looks like it needs another hit to the high and maybe come back down. Would be nice to see. So really we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's come on down for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that would actually put Theta, all of crypto, in a very good situation. So speaking of Theta, let's get to Theta here. So the price of Theta, like I said, you know, we're retesting the bull market support band right here. So we're in a very, very interesting spot. And you know, this is kind of make it or break it here. We're literally right teetering on the bull market support band. So if this is any indication to dollar cost average, I don't know what is. But you have to have the belief that it's going to go higher, right? So typically, not financial advice, but this is where you dollar cost average. It doesn't feel good because it feels like, oh man, but it's actually one of the best places to buy, right? Because you can see down here, look at this. We developed a base down in here, and when you look back in time, imagine buying at 93 cents. Right? Imagine buying at, 96 cents. I mean, we talked about this. Go back and watch my videos back in January, right? Mid to late January, and I basically said this is pretty much the buy of a lifetime here. This is a really good spot because we're back testing the bull market support band. We had an expanded flat. Yeah, it looked good. So now we're in the same situation. We also had an ABC. We're going sideways here, and we're right on the bull market support band. So, and we've tested it, a lot more than back over here. So, but I will be honest, the weekly candle doesn't look so pretty. But I mean, look at this weekly candle here. It reminds me a lot of the one here. So you can see they both have the same little tail on the top. Right, but then look at this one. it actually went down a little bit more, and then it actually started kicking off this 2-week trend here. So I would probably want to see the same thing in there. So go back to that total 3 fractal that we were just talking about, right? And that would kind of make sense. So the total 3 fractal, yeah. So taking that off, let's zoom in to the daily. I mean, the daily looks pretty good. I mean, look at how many red candles you had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? All the way back down to the bull market support band. Coming off of a 9 sell, too. So that was a good short there if anybody took it. So I'd like to see 7, 8, 9. I would like to see a 9 buy. That would be nice to see. So I like the 6 candle because it's starting to look like a doji. I really want to see a base get formed down in here without breaking this low. Definitely don't want to break this low here at $1.89. We really want to stay above, you know, $2, I would say, or at the lower end, yeah, $2.01. So let's see if we can start building a base in here. That would be the #1 thing I would look for the price of theta. It's looking like, you know, like I said, like a Wyckoff here. Boom, boom. Come down. We're developing that. Let's start rounding up, play around, and then continue. So that would be the big thing. Now, if we lose this low, then we're going to be looking at this right here, a back test of that high, right? So we came up, we made this top resistance, we sliced right through it, and then we have an A, a B, and then we come down for C, and we back test it. We back test it, and then we go flying to the upside. So, you know, it's a tough spot here. But again, we'll know because we'll see it how it breaks. If it starts to break, we'll get an indication that that's the case. So we'll have plenty of time to react if you need to. But for me, I'm just going to hodl. I don't need to worry about things like that unless you're trading, right? That's different. So if we do come down here, again, that would be very bullish. A 1, 2, 1, 2. Super, super bullish before a big move to the upside. If not, then this is wave 3. We're flagging out for wave 4. And now, you know, we're waiting for that wave 5 to come in. But yeah, the daily chart, you know, see how the candles are just barely going down, you know, red candle, red candle. So you would imagine a bottom has to be hashing out here soon. It's sort of creeping its way down. Like this was impulsing down. Impulsing down. This is kind of creeping down, right? It's got a different psychological effect, right? It's like ripping the band-aid off slowly as opposed to quickly. So let's see if we can find anything else in here. It's really not helpful. I mean, again, we had this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have an A. We come up for B. And then it looks like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 4, 5, something like that. Where we start to, you know, test in here and develop a base. We could come down and tag the low here quickly below $2. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for is support to get held in here around that $2 area. And then, of course, a recovery. Now, this is all contingent on the Bitcoin triangle playing out as well. So if the Bitcoin triangle fails and we start breaking lower, then, you know, we're going to know soon. Because when you put Bitcoin on, right, and let me just scrunch this down in here, you could see here's the top, and here's where Bitcoin is. But theta is all the way at the bottom here, right? So as an investor, I look at that and I say it's cheaper. It's more on sale. Like Bitcoin's way up here, which means if Bitcoin did come down, it doesn't even have to break this low, but if it did come down and backtest, you know, these areas in here, then you would think Theta would probably lose that support. So very interesting. We'll have to keep playing it and see how it unfolds. But I'm sticking with my guns, and I'm gonna say we hold until we don't. You can go back and look over here. Look at Theta. It shot all the way up, and then it created this base down in here. And there was a lot of times where it felt like it was going to lose, right? See how we're coming down here? And we sort of got down here, but then we came back up. Same thing right over here, right? So, you know, we could be in a situation like this. And I think we are, really. We're in some sort of accumulation because we had an impulse. We came down. Now we're going sideways. That's exactly what we're doing now. Now, if we break the low, it's still okay because, you know, again, we're going to back test. And that's also very important to do as well. And that leads me to the grand finale. I kept it a secret for the whole time. I didn't want to announce it, but now here we go. Look at this. It's not really a grand finale, but look, it's the fractal. I never shared it before. This is a new fractal. But wow, look at this thing. It's pretty decent here. You know, it gives us something to work with. Now, remember the total 3 fractal that we were looking at. So basically, I got the same fractal. Well, it's a different fractal. It's basically in the same time period of what total 3 did. So I thought, hey, if back in the day when total 3 did that, what was Theta doing, right, when total 3 was doing that? So here we go. It's not perfect, but it does give you an idea of what we're working with here. Especially, I really like this wave coming down. I like this little hump here, and then I kind of like this wave up. We did come up and hit the high. This one didn't, but it's okay. It's the same, you know, it's still similar wave structure. But what I do like is how it came down here, and it's kind of grinding down. So what we could expect is start moving back up here. Now, again, the low might not be in. We might need a little bit lower to go. I would say as long as we hold above really that $1.90. Let's see. I don't want to break this low, so I would say $1.95. I say if we as long as we hold above $1.95, I think Theta is still on track for this massive accumulation sideways box here to break out, just like how this broke out. So, you know, let's zoom out, and there we go, something like that. So when I go back in time, this is actually where I got it, right here. So this is our first wave to the upside, just like total 3, our first wave, right? So we basically played around in here until we didn't. So yeah. So yeah, this is another point for the bulls, right? You got points for the bears and points for the bulls. So how many points does the bulls have? How many points? I mean, that's really up for you to decide. I gave all the information I could. So yeah, we're just gonna have to let it play out here. It's definitely, you know, when you get down to the bull market support band, man, it's like nail biting. It's very intense. It's like, oh man, anything can happen. So a little sketchy, but just got to have conviction that it'll hold. If it doesn't hold, though, it's not a big deal. So here's the thing: if it doesn't hold, we can at least rule it out that that's not it, and we can just say, okay, now we're coming back down to back test. Now we know what it is, right? So the whole thing is, let's figure what it is, and for that we just have to wait. But my whole thing is, I think we're just accumulating in here. By the way, look at XRP. It came right down to the trend line. I'm going to talk about XRP in the next video. We're almost at an hour. Hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. Leave a comment. I read all your comments, by the way. I appreciate all the feedback and the support, and also rapid fire. I got those coins as well. So I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.